That's me.
Thank you for
Okay. We're going to be called to order at this time. Those of you that are watching, you hear my voice, but you don't see my picture because my computer is not wanting to log on. So I'll work on it and hopefully we'll get the picture. But I'd like to call us to order. And Sheila, can we have a roll call, please?
Troy Carr.
Here.
Jamie Clapham.
Here.
Katie Urban. Here. Donna Moore. Absent with no notice. Walt Swan.
Here.
Angela Rafferty.
Here.
And Chris Stephenson is absent with notice.
Right. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to invite you to stand. All right. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, before I take a motion to approve the proposed agenda, we are striking item 7, executive session. We will not go into executive session tonight. So I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed agenda, removing executive session.
I'll
So
motion.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
We
opposed?
technically need a roll call because of me.
Oh, yeah, good catch. Well, okay, yes, I mean,
Troy Carr.
yes.
Jamie Clapham.
Yes.
Katie Urban. Yes. Walt Swan.
Yes.
Angela Rafferty.
Yes.
Okay, so motion passes. I did not receive any open forum notices, so there's no board response. At this time, we'll get to the meat of why we're here, items for board information. So that's kindergarten and preschool. Ms. Roberts, you're up.
So let me pull up my screen here just a second to share my presentation with you. There we go. Okay. So today we're talking about junior kindergarten, and it is a program update. This is a program that was started with Rapid City Area Schools last school year. Junior kindergarten is a program for learners who meet the age criteria for kindergarten, but academically and socially just aren't quite ready yet. Junior kindergarten allows our learners to experience more academic success by giving them a more solid foundation prior to entering kindergarten. And this school year, junior kindergarten is at General Beadle, South Park, Valley View, and Meadowbrook. And the year before this, when we're talking about the data, it was the first 3 schools, General Beadle, South Park, and Valley View. This was our beginning of year data for our students who had been in junior kindergarten. And you can see there where our students who had been in junior kindergarten, a lot of them were scoring above benchmark and at benchmark before starting the school year. And then in the middle of the year, when we reassess them, a lot of them are holding to that, being at benchmark, or above benchmark. We did have a little bit of movement. In the middle of the year, it is the same assessments, but the criteria that we're measuring against is a little bit more stringent because we're expecting to see that growth. So we still are seeing students that are in a good place, but we did see a little movement there. This was our beginning of year data for math for those students who had been in junior kindergarten and were going into kindergarten. And you can see again that a lot of them are scoring at or above benchmark at the beginning of the year. And then when we assess them in the middle of the year with the same assessments, but looking at what growth we would expect to see for them, that we did see some change there. Yeah, so that's where we're at with those students that were in junior kindergarten last school year. So junior kindergarten is no longer a pilot. The instructional council voted to move junior kindergarten out of the pilot phase. This year, we had a kindergarten screening committee that worked alongside junior kindergarten teachers to develop a consistent kindergarten screening tool that will be used by all schools. This change will allow teachers to inform families if junior kindergarten is a good fit for their student, regardless of which school they're at. So because all students are being screened the same, then we could identify some potentially at schools that don't have a junior kindergarten program and let them know ahead of time that that could possibly be a good fit for them. We do have a personal transfer process that was established to support the program. For junior kindergarten, the personal transfer window opens after the last school completes kindergarten screening. So it is a little bit different because we wanted to make sure that all of that screening is complete before we take a look at that and see what spots might be available for students that it could be a good fit for them, but it isn't at the school that they're attending.
Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Since it's a personal transfer, will they have access to busing if they are like in a different part of the city?
They don't, and that's because our general school buses don't, they
Mhm.
run by area. And so that is something that a family would have to consider is transportation to get them to that school, just as there is true for any other personal transfers. Yeah. We are adding 2 schools next school year. So 6 of the 14 elementary schools next year will have junior kindergarten. It will be at Robbinsdale, Knollwood, South Park, Meadowbrook, Valley View, and General Beetle.
Oh, perfect. I do have a question. So if a family is identified, if a child is
Mhm.
identified and the information goes to the family, and how does that work as far as room and the transfer? So say there's only room at a school that family will need to transfer.
Yeah.
That will still then,
At the school, if the student lives in the boundary for a school that has junior kindergarten,
okay,
then those students are eligible for the program there first because they live there and
Sure.
it's at their school. And then if there ends up being some spots left after the students that attend that school have been placed, if there's a little bit of room, then it will be open to personal transfers from other schools that do not have junior kindergarten.
okay. All right, thank you.
You're
Ms.
welcome.
Urban.
I feel like I've seen it before, but did you have any data from the year before those kindergartners to compare to how the junior K versus the kids that had junior K versus the kids that didn't, how they performed? So I guess they would be the first graders, what their scores were when they were in kindergarten, and then now the kindergartners with junior K, just to see if there was a big difference.
I could say just offhand that our kindergarten beginning of year scores this year were higher than they were the year before, even the last 2 years. So the year that we didn't have junior kindergarten at all, scores were lower at the beginning of the year. And then last year with junior kindergarten, they were higher in kindergarten than they were the year before, with some of our students receiving junior kindergarten services. So they weren't pulling, because they're not taking that assessment because it's a kindergarten and first grade assessment.
Mhm.
And then This school year, at the beginning of year, our kindergarten was even higher than the last 2 years before that. That overall kindergarten scores were higher in math and reading than we've started in a few years.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Clapham? Could you,
Yes, thank you so much. Ms. Roberts, thank you so much for the presentation. And as you probably know, for most of us on the board, this program has a special place in my heart. I was wondering a couple questions. The first one was what is the cap on junior kindergarten classes? And then the second one was, as we expand, how are the junior kindergarten teachers chosen? Like, do kindergarten and first grade teachers say they want to change? How does that process work?
Yeah. The junior kindergarten classes are capped at 18 because we feel strongly with the needs that those students have being a little bit different. Sorry, I almost always have this shut off. That with the needs that they have, that they need to be a smaller class size than our other kindergarten classes. And then typically how teachers, if they want to be a junior kindergarten teacher, they're kind of deciding in their building. As a building says, we're going to add junior kindergarten. That's a discussion between administration and the teachers that are kindergarten teachers, because it typically converts a one kindergarten teacher into a junior kindergarten. So yeah, they work together with their administrator to make the determination of who would be the best fit and what they think that should look like.
was that?
Thank you very much.
All right, Ms. Rafferty.
So if you have a junior kindergartner transfer to another school that's operating junior kindergarten, when they go into first grade, would they be eligible to stay at that school or would they have to go back to their home school?
They go back to their home school because the move was only for a junior kindergarten, which was available at that building. It wasn't an ongoing because their home school still has kindergarten, first grade, second, third. So for that reason, a junior kindergarten personal transfer is only for the year of junior kindergarten. If they wanted to stay in that building, they would put in another personal transfer request for the next year to see if there was space. Yep.
And Ms. Urban.
Sorry, last one. Is there a need to adjust the curriculum over time if you're gonna see more growth with junior K so that every year it gets a little bit harder so they don't just sort of plateau?
That's something we certainly will have to keep an eye on. I would say that junior K through 12, we are getting new instructional resources next year for everyone. And so junior kindergarten is going to have that as well. So yeah, we'll just keep an eye on how things are progressing and yeah, watching that.
All right, Dr. Strasser.
If I could just return back to the personal transfer questions. My office via Mr. Stewart, and I know Ms. Parker have been working on updating policy JECCP, which would include a lot of what you're asking tonight about junior K and personal transfers. So that will help clarify some of that moving forward, and I believe that'll be coming in the near future.
Okay. Just to ask the question, have you found there to be any challenges or hurdles or difficulties in the program?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. There's always challenges
Yeah,
and
sure.
difficulties. And we had the way we identified students for junior kindergarten in the second year was different than what we had done the first year, partially just because of timing. When we started junior kindergarten in the first year, it was pretty last minute. And so we weren't able to do the same kind of planning at the spring kindergarten screening. And so that certainly made things look different in this second year. And there's things that we have worked to kind of address and balance out as we've progressed.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. The last thing I have about junior kindergarten is I just want to thank Katie Farmer, who has done huge amounts of work to really get it up and going. She works with teaching, learning, and innovation. and the principals and teachers at the schools that have junior kindergarten. It is always uncomfortable to be kind of jumping into something that's so unknown when you're starting out. And, I just, hats off to them in kind of taking that risk and being willing to do that, knowing that, about how much we care about students. But it certainly is kind of a uncomfortable place for a while when you're doing something new. So.
All right, thank you very much. Good report, good update. Any lasting questions? All right, I see none. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, up next is virtual elementary school. Oh,
Yes.
oh, it's two, junior K and preschool. Okay, maybe putting my glasses on will help me stay on course. All right.
It's okay. It's always hard for a minute here to be able to actually see where you can show your slides because it moves things around a little bit. Okay. So the next thing that we'd like to talk about here is we are investigating the possibility of starting a Title I funded preschool. Because we know how much it impacts students' education to have that preparation ahead of time and what a difference that makes to their academic trajectory overall. That's something that we are looking into. And so we wanted to share information with that about that with you. So why preschool? Research shows that students who attend preschool are much more likely to experience ongoing success in school. And Title I funds are designated to support our most vulnerable students. So the research shows that students attending preschool continue to see gains as they go throughout their school career. And then just knowing that the research also speaks to students who are at risk, and there are a number of things that put students at risk that kind of place them in that category, and many of them are the same ones. The overlap that we see for students that are in Title I schools, and that's the reason that Title I funds are given to our Title I schools, because we're wanting to mitigate those factors. And so we want to explore the possibility of using Title I funded preschool to help really assist those students. So our current thinking about the structure is that it would be paid for entirely out of Title I funds. And the reason for that is because currently the state of South Dakota does not provide any funds for preschool out of what they give for public education. We are thinking about starting in 2 locations, most likely General Beetle and Blackhawk. We're not sure, but that's something we're looking at. And what we are also thinking is that there would be 1 certified teacher and 1 paraprofessional for each classroom. Again, more things that we're thinking about as we're running by what we might be able to make work. This would be intended for students who are ages 4 or 5. So anybody who's already kindergarten age would not be eligible. The best fit for those students is junior kindergarten, if they feel that they need more support. But it would not be for students under the age of 4. So it's really intended for just that year right before they start kindergarten. In order to use Title I funds, it would need to be a full day program. And we are looking at it being slightly shorter than the K-5 school day, because that can be a very long day for students that are that young, for our 4-year-olds. Any student who lives in the boundaries of a Title I school would be eligible to attend, even if it's not General Beetle or Blackhawk or wherever, if we're having the preschool where that would be. But they would be eligible because we would be using district Title I funds. And so that would be open to them. Families would be responsible for their own transportation though, because the bus routes really are very specific for buildings and what students go to which building. And so we wouldn't be able to transport, if a student, for example, was going to preschool at Blackhawk and they lived in the valley, that's just not something that we would be able to just make our busing system currently that we have work for that. Our next steps, the YMCA is interested in exploring a partnership. We do have a meeting set to start discussing what that might possibly look like. The Department of Education is hosting a meeting called Title Programs Plans to Practice on April 8th and 9th in Pier. So we do plan to attend and learn more about it. And we want to determine how this would fit together with our current preschool program, particularly for our students with special needs, because there are a lot of implications there that need to be carefully considered. And then we would need to determine what curriculum resources would be used, because that's always a key factor when we're talking about instruction. So in summary, our plans are all very tentative. As we learn more and develop our plans further, they will evolve and change, and we will be sharing more information with you as we go along.
It's exciting. Mrs. Clapham.
One that is super exciting. My other question is, so it's Title I funds. Does that mean that it would come out of that specific school's Title I budget? Like, does that come out of Blackhawk's Title I budget, or what does that look like?
That's a great question. And because we would want it to be possible for any student that lives in a Title I area to attend, we actually would be using kind of the district portion of Title I funds so that it's kind of shared between the schools because it's able to be used for students in any Title I school. And then it isn't drawing a larger amount just from one building or two
And
buildings.
then, thank you. And then I also wondered, and this might be farther than we've gotten, but I imagine like the process, because I could picture there being significant demand and we'd have to have like a wait list kind of process, I would
Mhm.
assume for.
Yeah. I think that we probably would, and just thinking about it, what it would look like, the application process or who is interested for it and what the demand might be and how we would handle that. Yeah, that's certainly something that we'll have to carefully consider and make sure that whatever it is as clean and as possible, and also that it would address any needs that we have, because it would be important, like that the student lives in one of the areas where there's a Title I school, because that's who the Title I funds are for. So there'll be pieces that include that we'll really have to make sure that we're very solid in, so that we are in compliance with our use of federal dollars.
Thank you.
Mrs. Urban?
Do you guys know when you would make a decision on where or when this is
Mhm.
gonna happen, or for sure whether it will happen?
It's going, I couldn't say exactly. A part of it will be as kind of plans evolve. And when we know more, attending that meeting in early April in Pier. And then certainly needing to have a lot of discussions with what is happening in special services and to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. So those are pretty big pieces. The YMCA, what might that partnership look like? It's exciting. And also it's a lot to think about and a lot of pieces to put together. Dr. Thompson, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
No, I was just thinking off the top of my head that it would be nice if we could have a decision to bring it to the board at the May board meeting. But we'll just have to see how all of those pieces fit together. But that would give us the opportunity then to hire staff. That's a piece we have to keep in consideration too.
Well, I just really appreciate, I think the more resources we can put towards early intervention it's a good investment. It makes a lot of sense. And even just being at the teacher listening sessions over the last few weeks, I've heard, even from the secondary level, like they are supportive of more happening at that elementary level, because they want kids to arrive ready to learn. And so that's where we're seeing the biggest gap. And so I am always going to be a proponent of funneling more resources towards those early grades. Thank you for your work.
I had just a curious question. Where did the genesis of the idea of the preschool, because I think it's awesome that we're even looking at it. I went to preschool, my kids went to preschool. I just think it's awesome. So, and we hadn't had it. So where did kind of the thought process to even get to this point come from?
Rapid City Area Schools has had kind of a hybrid where we have had some mixed in with some of the special services preschool. So there's been a little bit there. But I would say a part of it is in my opportunity this year to be more involved in Title I funding than I have in the past. Just with some extra duties as assigned this year, that I just really have been thinking a lot about how we can use funds in a way that really moves the needle for students and what matters there. And that's something that I think is just a wise use of funds because it's really important. And so I've been doing research on what some of those things might be and what it might look like. And this is one of the things that really came up to the top, as it usually does. But that led me to work on exploring it further and trying to lean into this a little.
Well, that's awesome. And, you know, the Bible tells us don't envy, but I hope between these programs that we're, you know, that we take the lead. This district takes the lead in junior K and in preschool, and other districts will call us about what to do and not to do. So I'm really excited about that part.
Well, I think about how they fit together, where students that maybe that get preschool, then maybe they don't need junior kindergarten.
Okay. I was gonna ask.
And students that, you know, for whatever reason, couldn't get preschool, then we do still have junior kindergarten, or if a student really is in need and needs both of them. But those things that we can do that are preventative, and then looking at how it really can change a child's academic trajectory, and it can be a really big deal, so.
Oh, wow. All right, Ms. Rafferty.
This is really exciting, and I'm glad we're looking into this and having discussions about this because I've had parents reach out to me wanting to know why we didn't have a preschool program. And it's nice to know that we're starting, we're taking small steps and we're looking into it. And also, I think it's also good for preschool is it's good for children. It gives them exposure. So when they're ready to go to kindergarten, they're ready to hold a crayon, cut. I mean, some of the kids that I've seen in the past have come to school and they just haven't had that exposure and they're really excited. So I think having a preschool program will give them that exposure to, you know, and learn to interact with kids. And I truly do believe it will help with their academic success too. So.
Ms. Urban, thank you.
Has there been any thought about doing like 2 half days instead of a full day so that you can impact more kids?
To use title funds, right now, my understanding is it needs to be a whole day.
And the research really does show that full day preschool is much more beneficial long-term than half-day preschool.
Yeah. And even as I'm sitting here thinking about it, even what we're doing here, you know, we talk about graduation rates. And so what is done, as you said, again, I think it's worth whatever resources we spend. It's really following our strategic plan about having an effect, you know, when they get to high school. So that too is exciting.
Okay.
All right. Any other report before I move on, Miss? Okay. All right. Now, virtual elementary school, Mrs. Hogenkamp.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Jamie, you're not muted.
Okay, good evening. I'm Becky Hogenkamp. I am the administrator over the virtual school that's housed at Kibben Custer. So just to go over a few things, this year was our first year with the virtual program. And that slide right there is showing what our enrollment looked like. We have had, the most we've had enrolled at one time was 20. We have serviced over 35 kids. We do have, we have been able to provide some opportunities this year for students that were like traveling out of the country. So then they were able to stay registered in Rapid City, use the online school, and continue their education while they were in other places. We've had a couple of students that were going to be out for extended medical leave. They were able to enroll in the virtual school and continue to receive their education while they were staying home. So those are some benefits we've had. So that's why the number of enrolled students looks different than the number of students served, because we have some that come in knowing it's going to be temporary. So what makes this unique is that we are a hybrid. And so students come for 2 hours each week to meet with their teacher. That is a required face-to-face time. During that time, the teacher, they're doing online projects, diving into lessons that sometimes just need a little more of that face-to-face interaction, some of the phonics and stuff for some of those younger kids. They also have the opportunity to attend specials, so music, library, PE, counseling at Meadowbrook. And so that's an option if they want to have that social piece as well. They're also allowed to go on their grade level field trips with Meadowbrook. And we've had a lot of students who take advantage of that. Just kind of helps them get out in the community by going to those field trips. We also are able to provide all of the materials. So the district provides their Chromebook and then all of the materials that they need. And parents have really liked that piece, not having to kind of piece it all together on their own. And then in the afternoons, the teachers are available for any like tutoring or extra time if students want to come in, if they're just needing some extra help. That time is open for them as well. And students do receive they can receive special education services. We do have a virtual special ed teacher, and we also have a virtual speech and language pathologist. And so they are able to service those students if they have those needs as well. And then just for continued growth for this program, some added communication from the district. I know there was at the beginning of the year, not quite sure how this was going to look, where we were going to go. And so there wasn't as much kind of advertisement and communication about it. I would love to see that kind of increase. Partnering with the base. I know there's a large population of students who are homeschooled there, and just providing this option for families. And then making sure that other elementary schools have the information that they can share with families. So when they do have needs like extended vacations and illnesses and those types of things, that they can use this as a resource. Any questions?
Ms. Urban?
Thanks for touching on the growth strategy, because on your first slide, did that show just 10 kids right now? Is that?
We have 10 kids right now. We did have 2 more start on Friday, so technically we're at 12, but.
It's just shocking to me, because I really thought this would be one of those things where you would have so many people interested that you wouldn't know what to do with them. And I just think there is interest out there. I almost think about like doing billboards or something like that. I mean, you see some of the private schools doing that. I don't know that a lot of people knew about it.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I mean, I just hear that all the time from homeschool families that are like, we wish we had curriculum, or we wish we had more direction. So I know that there is a need out there. And I'm really, really glad we have it. I think it's important. But yes, I think we have to promote it more.
Yeah.
And then my question would be, like, what are the outcomes? Do we feel like the kids are doing well, just as well as they would in person?
Yes, and so the students that have been with since the beginning have definitely shown growth. They're keeping up with their peers. Some of the the students that started with us and then are no longer, so that dropped our numbers down a little bit. If they don't participate or don't attend the face-to-face, we have, it's the same attendance policy. Like if you're truant and not coming to school and not doing your work, then we follow that same process. And so then they end up, the recommendation is that they go back to their face-to-face school. And so that has happened with a few students. So.
All right, Mrs. Clapham, were you done? Mrs. Clapham.
Hi, thank you, Ms. Hogenkamp, for that presentation. I agree with Ms. Urban, like the growth strategy and moving forward. And I know like the first year as a pilot, we were kind of everybody was flying a little bit blind, and I appreciated the district kind of jumping in with both feet, even though it kind of had to happen quickly. I was wondering, one, do you notice that many of the students are like formerly homeschool students? And then my other question is, their 2 hours, like, do the families choose that, or is it the teachers here these times and they have to come these times, or how does that scheduling work?
This times are scheduled, and so like all of the second graders come at the same time. So those kids are together, they have that social piece, and then the teacher can plan for that. There are times when students can't make it and they, the teachers are flexible with that or try to be flexible. They can come during the afternoon, during the makeup time, those types of things. And then what was your first question again?
Do you notice of the students that we've had, are there a large number of like formerly homeschool students? Do you see they were students who were in person? Like if you look at the mix and the demographics, like is there a certain group that seems like it's the majority or not necessarily?
It was a mix, and I would say that of the students that have been with us since the beginning, they were homeschool students. A lot of the students that started and then ended up having to go back were students that came from the traditional brick and mortar building, thought this would be a better option, and then it just didn't work because they weren't participating or logging on and doing the work and that type of thing. And so they go back to their regular school building.
Dr. Strasser.
Just a couple quick comments. The enrollment has shifted throughout the year, which I think is kind of normal. At one point, we were around 20 and had a waiting list. And so we did add a teacher for that to address the needs. So enrollment has fluctuated throughout the year due to the things that Ms. Hogenkamp has described. We did promote early, and then we did another push out in the late fall. So we've done some advertising, marketing that way. And I think we'll get better at that as we go into next year. And just to reiterate, the online piece is still challenging for young kids. It's not just a catch-all, and I think sometimes it's seen as an easy out. And we want to guard against that. We want to really maintain that this is a high quality education for all kids and a unique opportunity. So we want to lean into that. And I think we'll continue to pursue ways to improve. But so far, I think we've taken some good steps to get the program moving under Ms. Hogenkamp's leadership.
And I would say too, we did have several families that came wanting to enroll, and what they were doing was avoiding truancy. And so once I talked to the principal from the school they were coming to, and they're like, well, this is the situation. I was like, if you can't attend, it's not a place to just come because it's going to be easy and you're not going to have to do any work. So, yeah.
Ms. Rafferty.
Thank you for putting those safeguards in place. So my question is when the teacher meets with them for 2 hours a week, is it online, and are they using like a learning platform?
So they're face-to-face online more than that. That 2 hours is face-to-face at Kib and Custer. So parents bring them to the building, and they are able to work with the teacher, and then they have their peers around them too, their grade level peers. And so, and then like when it was holiday, like right before Christmas, they had all the grade levels come together and they all had their Christmas party and that kind of stuff all together. So they're still getting some of those social pieces like they would if they were in a traditional school. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Okay. I don't know, I apologize if you mentioned this, and if you said it in your report, but I know Jamie brought out the fact that some of the kids are homeschooled. What are some of the other reasons why a family would choose virtual elementary? And second question, is there an application process? Can you be denied? How does all that work?
The only students that have been denied were the ones that I talked about that had truancy. Otherwise, we've really, anybody who wants to try it, we're gonna let them try, because if they've never done it before, it's hard to tell if they're gonna be successful or not. So there's not really an application process per se. And then as far as the students that aren't homeschooled, they come for a variety of reasons. Like I said, we had one that was on extended medical because she was going through chemo. And so it was just safer for her to be virtual. And then in that case, we did not require the face-to-face time either. So it's nice that we're able to be flexible with that, in that requirement. And then other students who just, the parents are having like a transportation issue. And so they feel like this would be easier, or we've had a couple kiddos that their behavior at their brick and mortar school is very disruptive to their peers. And then when they're able to engage online, and then when they come to that face-to-face, it's a much smaller peer group. And so we don't see the same behaviors.
Oh, wow.
So
That's awesome that parents have that option. Again, thank you.
Yeah.
At Rapid City Area Schools again on our back, so thank you. Any other questions from Ms. Hogan? All right, thank you very much. Another good report. Next, safety presentation, alert, Mr. Sargent. Well, I quite understand that, so. I won't tell you to take your time, but. Be- Oh, goodness. Did you have to do a full reboot? Okay. All right. No? I guess if anybody needs a break, I guess this would be a time to get something to drink, water, and so why don't we officially do that? Let's just take a 3-4 minute break, and we're not all glaring at Mr. Sargent for him to get it together. Man, I haven't had dinner, so I'm hungry. Did Donna respond to you? Oh, okay.
I'll fix that.
Okay. I should have gave a time.
Oh, I think that's.
Sorry.
I know, like Dr. Strasser, get those high, tall desks. Or even a bouncy ball. No, I like those. Okay, is this it? All right, we're back in session and, Mr. Sergeant.
Next sergeant, Rapid City Area Schools, School Safety Manager. Tonight will be about alert versus Alice. A little history of Alice. Alice was the actual first crisis management program in the Rapid City Area Schools. We did run a program, kind of a hybrid of the run, hide, fight prior. But in 2015, we actually had a documented course approved program that was brought in by board member Katie Urban. At that time, we didn't have anything, and that was something that was imperative, and we got that run. Since then, though, Alice has been sold and is now owned by its parent company, Navigate 360. This is the primary crisis management plan used by schools across the country prior to 2023. It was endorsed by the South Dakota Department of Education until 2024, and trained the trainers were local law enforcement and Alice staff only. Cost for using Alice was approximately $15,000 per year. Alert is, I'm sorry, this is the acronym for Alice. Alert, lockdown, counter, and escape. Alert, recognize the threat, communicate, which is an imperative process. Lockdown, securing in place, inform, provide real-time information. There are some conflicts with that because how do you provide real-time information when you're hiding yourself? Counter, Utilize techniques to distract, confuse, and gain control over an intruder. Escape. Remove from the danger zone if safe to do so. One of the disadvantages for Alice is there is no actual law enforcement program on how they respond to an active shooter event. So right out of the gate, we're using two different programs in an active shooter event. Currently, Alert is being used by all local emergency responders, the Rapid City Police Department, Pennington County Sheriff's Office, Rapid City Fire Department, and our 911 dispatch center. So all the logistics, all the terminology would be consistent. It has become the primary crisis management plan utilized statewide by the South Dakota Department of Public Safety to train first responders and educators in active shooter preparedness. It includes a management plan for schools and civilian organizations called CRAZE. CRAZE stands for Civilian Response to Active Shooter Events. CRAZE allows the district school to tailor the program to fit specific needs. For example, we have two buildings where we have several non-ambulatory students. This would be a program that we could tailor to fit their needs. It works with our existing infrastructure security technology. So all of our cameras, all of our panic buttons, all of our door locks would all stay the same. Works in conjunction with a program called CSTAG, Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines, which is what we're currently using today, which falls under the STAR protocol, the School Threat Assessment and Response that law enforcement officers write up. To become a Train the Trainer, it's a 4-hour online course, which is available. I am currently certified as a Train the Trainer. The goal is to have all of our RCAS security as Train the Trainers, and that is currently scheduled for March 16th, which is a work day without students. Alert. The key terminology: avoid, deny, defend. Avoid, keep away, lock down, lock doors, defend yourself by all means. Advanced. Alert stands for Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training. Alert is a research-based, federally approved training program designed to prepare first responders to effectively isolate, distract, and neutralize active shooters. We all have gone to the airport and other buildings where the federal government used to run the program Run, Hide, Fight. The federal government is now getting away from Run, Hide, Fight and using Alert in the avoid, deny, defend terminology. CRAZE is under Alert. CRAZE, Response to Active Shooter Events, is the civilian counterpart, an evidence-based training designed to help civilians survive an active shooter situation. Unlike Alice, CRAZE teaches to defend as a last resort. We don't want to put people in a situation where we're training them to attack an armed intruder while they are unarmed and untrained. The national standard for civilian active shooter training and endorsed by the National Association of School Resource Officers. Currently, we only have 2 local active Alice instructors, which is Josh McElroy of the Rapid City Police Department and Jeff Dirksen, also of the Rapid City Police Department. Both incredible SROs are leaving the SRO program to try and become promoted to be sergeants for the Rapid City Police Department. It's a sad loss for us and a great gain for the Rapid City Police Department. In addition, Alice You must teach Alice as it is written. There is no variation to their program. There is no online option. There are no longer state instructors through the Department of Public Safety. There are several active litigations open against Navigate 360 and Alice. Inappropriate training and training-induced trauma are part of that process, which encourages unarmed to fight armed intruders. Annual cost of Alice is very expensive. Alert is free. Training. We can train our staff through our Canvas program that we currently use for other pre-service trainings. Online training can be completed in less than 4 hours. Train the trainers also 4 hours. Staff training, approximately 2.5 hours. We can also do it in person, which is what we intend to do for the first training. Continuation of trainings would be approximately 1 hour to 2 hours annually, but we can put out information throughout the year on Canvas. Brett Garland, our South Dakota Department of Public Safety School Safety Manager, is a CRAZE instructor with over 70+ trainings across the state. He will be out here helping us with our training. All trainings through Alert are free and a minimum change to student knowledge of crisis management plan. No additional training is really necessary for our students. We're still going to be doing the same thing. Here's just a quick breakdown of what is out there and what we have used and what I would like to see us go to. Run, Hide, Fight, Alice Alert across the top. Run, Hide, Fight was a federally based program that actually became organized in 2012, which is now going away for Alert CRAZE. Standard within the federal government buildings, civilian platform. There's a cost to it, but none of us really knew what we paid. We just went out and taught it. Training through government employees. Alice is a private for-profit nationwide company. Started in 2000. Was the current standard when there was no current standard and we all needed it at that time. It's a civilian platform. It's approximately $15,000 a year. Works with our current comprehensive school threat assessment CSTAG. Alert, CRAZE, developed out of the University of San Marco in 2002. Its kind of key is avoid, deny, defend. CRAZE is the current standard for civilians, which works with the law enforcement aspect of Alert. Both platforms are together, free through the government. Training in-house also works with CSTAG. We have put a lot of time and energy into Alice, and we are starting to see some of its concerns. Big one is financially. The other one is some of the training components compared to what we have now are questionable. We have numerous law enforcement officers, to include our SROs, asking when we're changing over because they all changed over. Board, I'm just asking you to give this an opportunity to get people trained up and utilize this program, because this will be a step upwards from Alice.
Okay, thank you for that report. Mrs. Urban.
Thanks, Mr. Sargent. I am supportive of this change and I appreciate the time between kind of when we were thinking it might go in and now, because I do think it was last fall, it just felt like a big change for a lot of our principals, and even for me to sort of wrap my head around. I think just being able to have more of a explanation like this and taking the time is just makes me feel better. And I do think it is a move in the right direction. Thank you for your work.
Ms. Rafferty.
I appreciate you bringing this to the board tonight, and I totally support it too, because I've actually had the joy of experiencing all the Alice drills and trying to do that with a class of kindergartners. But I think we need to do what's best for our staff and for our students to keep them safe.
One of the better things for me on this is being able to utilize the expertise we have in our buildings with our security staff. A lot of our security staff is retired federal probation, retired law enforcement officers who know this, and they can also aid in our training where we don't have to hire people to come in. We actually have the professionals in-house, which I really am excited about using.
All right, Dr. Thompson.
It is my intention to place this on the board agenda next week, for board consideration.
Okay, Mrs. Clapham.
Yes, I was going to say, thanks for the presentation. I appreciate the effort put into the presentation, and also I think just being Mr. Sargent being mindful, obviously, of the safety of our students and staff, at the same time looking at fiscal responsibility. You know, we hear all the time, like, we obviously want to do what's best, but the fact that this is doing what's best, like what's standard, while also saving the district money as well, is a bonus. So I thank you for your work in caring for the district in multiple ways with this change.
All right. Anyone else? I too support the change, and I think as Ms. Urban mentioned, the issue last time this was presented was timing. Because I think it was a week or two before school was gonna start. And so the board's concern was, well, how everybody was gonna. So I don't think it was ever about making the change or not liking the alert. I think it was just a timing. So this is a good timing to get everybody ready and know that we'll go to this in the fall. So, Ms. Rafferty.
If this is approved, when will this go into effect?
We will start training our administrators in June, and it'll be then working with our own training team for staff in early August when everyone starts to come back, and it'll be implemented the first day of school.
Is that because is there no room to start the training this year? Is it too over the summer?
We've used all of our PD days.
Oh, okay.
And so I have got 3 days that I'm looking at in June to do administrators first.
Okay.
And it's going to be all of the administrators probably on different days to get them all trained up, because once we're out of school, they do start their vacation time.
Okay. Any questions? All right, Dr. Thompson, we look forward to this being on the agenda next week. And at this point, I don't see it being an issue. So we'll go from there. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sargent. Appreciate you. Are you? Oh, yeah. Are you this is a very new position for the district, is it not? Safety manager? Have we ever had one before?
Not prior.
You're
to
the
me.
first one.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so. Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, staffing guidelines, Dr. Thompson.
So as I have visited staff across the district in listening sessions and other venues, I've received a lot of questions regarding staffing levels and whether they are equitable across the district. So I have developed this report to answer those questions and also to guide our staffing allocations moving forward. A couple of things to keep in mind is that each of the staffing proposals is based loosely on state or national research and or national averages, depending upon availability. And I use the term loosely Because in some cases, there were such discrepancies between our current staffing proportions and what was recommended in the research that I had to create alternatives that would be feasible for our district. In some cases, I went through multiple reiterations before I came up with something that would be feasible financially and just with staffing availability for hiring for the district. The numbers that you will see in the presentations are enrollment projections that Corey has for 26-27, not our current enrollment. And I just wanted to say this only includes elementary and middle school at this point. I did not attempt to do staffing allocations for the senior high. That's a whole different endeavor that takes a different process and a lot more time. So that could be something we would look at in another year. Maybe. I first gave this presentation to our district direction leaders and then to our building principals. As I talked to building principals, I asked them to have an open mind and to try not to be defensive, you know, depending on whether they were gaining or losing staff, and to look at the big picture to be a team player. And I would encourage you on this next one to ask whatever questions you need to for clarity and understanding, but try not to get bogged down into the tiny little minutia that could hijack the entire evening. And then, of course, we have to keep in mind that we're looking at a budget deficit for next year. And these are to be guidelines. As such, they need to be considered alongside other factors such as whether a school is CPE, a community eligibility provision school, meaning that 80 to 100% of their students qualify for free and reduced lunch, and they have lots of needs for additional staff. Whether they have district level SPED programs in their building, and of course, our budget. So I start with elementary and middle school administration. When I looked at the research, and I won't spend a lot of time on the research because you have a separate packet that contains more details about that you can look at your own time. But the research from the Association of Education, Finance and Policy recommends a ratio of 333 to 1. The National Center for Educational Statistics recommends 253 to 1. So that's an average of 295 to 1. What I used for the district rationale in this proposal is for non-title schools, which I would consider a 2 or 3 track elementary school, of 450 to have 1 principal. For title schools, that should be 200 to 1. And so then if you looked at the average of those two, that would put us at 325 to 1, which is right within those recommendations that we talked about in the research. So what does that look like? In a non-title school, if you had 1 to 450 students, which is a 2 or 3 track school, you would have a principal. If you went up to 451 to 525 students, which is a smaller track elementary school, you would have a principal and a dean. When you got to 526, which is a bigger 4-track school, you might transition that dean to an assistant principal because there's more instructional needs. At 601 to 750, that's a 5-track school. You go to a principal, an AP, and a dean. And I don't know that we'll get to above 750, but if you did, that's a 6-track school and you would want a principal, an AP, and 2 deans. Okay. At a title school, you're going to get that extra assistance much sooner. So for a principal, it's 1 to 199. When you hit 200, you could get an AP or a dean, depending on how much Title I money you have available, which you could afford. At 400, you get both an AP and a dean. 600, an AP, a principal, and 2 deans. I put question marks there because that's one I'm just kind of uncertain if you actually need the extra dean. But by numbers, that's where it would be. And then I put 800 plus on here just because I wanted to make the point that I do not necessarily recommend elementary schools of 800 or above. And if we did go that direction, I believe you would need to split them like a school within a school. So you have a principal for K2 and you have a principal for 3-5. So. All right, so what does that mean? And you do have this chart too. Looking at Corral Drive, enrollment projections say they would have 426 students next year. They are not a Title I school, so,
Dr. Thompson, hold on.
yep,
Jamie, did you have a question now?
Just to clarifying, so when you, and pardon my ignorance in this question, when you use the term a track school, are you saying like the term like how many sections per
correct.
grade?
So
Okay,
like
that's what I thought.
3
I just wanted to make
kindergartens, 3 first grade, 3
Yes.
second grade, yep.
Okay, I am on the same page. Thank you.
Okay, so Corral Drive is not a Title I school. So when you look at that chart I showed previously, those guidelines would say they should have one principal. That is what they have. So they are in green. There would be no changes. Okay. When you look at Meadowbrook, they are projected to have 417 students. However, that principal also supervises Kib and Custer, and they have a district-wide SPED program at Meadowbrook. So if you just, and they're not a title school, so if you looked at the guidelines, they would be recommended to have one principal based on that 417 number. They actually have one principal and one AP. I believe that should stay because they also supervise Kib and Custer, and those students are not included in that 417. So my recommendation is that you leave that, we leave that as is. Okay. Pinedale, they are anticipated to have 384 students. They're not a title school. The guidelines would say one principal, and that's what they have. So they're in green. Okay. You get to Blackhawk. They're projected to have 274 students. They are a title school. So you look at the other chart, they would be recommended to have one principal and one dean, but they only have one principal. So they are in red. That's something we need to look at. And Dr. Strasser had previously promised that we would put a dean there. So that is right in line with what he was already thinking based on past practices. So that is one where we would be adding via title. Okay. I don't know if you want me to go through every single school. South Canyon, you know, they're recommended to have one principal. That's what they have. So there's no change.
Hold on, let's answer that question. Does anybody want her to go through every school? Okay, no, that's
Okay.
not necessary.
So I will look at, if you want to look at just like the reds and the oranges, probably. So Valley View is one. They are projected to have 613 students. They are a title school. So they would, by the guidelines, have a principal, an AP, and 2 deans. But if you remember, that's one I had questions marks by. I am recommending, because it's so close to the cutoff, that we just monitor that for another year and make a determination later as if we want to add somebody there. Okay. General Beetle is one. They have 444 students, but they are a CEP school, so very high need. The guidelines would say they'd have a principal, an AP, and a dean, but they actually have a principal and 2 APs. Based on the needs in that building, I believe that that extra instructional piece given by the AP rather than a dean is necessary, and we should leave that as is. That's where that consideration of the CEP school comes in. Same thing with Knollwood. They are a title school. They currently have a principal, an AP, and a dean. The recommendation by the guidelines would be a principal, an AP, or a dean. So they're a little bit over what they should have. But because they're a CEP school, I would recommend leaving that where it is. So it's not a hard cutoff based by the number. It is, that's where, you know, Dr. Strasser and I and the building principals need to have a conversation based upon the needs in the building. Okay. So overall, at the elementary level, what we're looking at would be adding a dean at Black Hawk, which was already promised, and at Grandview, and monitoring Valley View. So the cost would be 2 deans via title funds. So there would actually be no effect on the general budget. Okay. Any questions about that? The first chart takes the longest because you have to get the gist of it. Okay. Oh,
Any questions? Mr. Swan.
Dr. Thompson, now, Dean of Students is still under a teacher contract, is that correct?
correct.
And they're supposedly trying to, it's kind of a quasi administrator, just dealing more with discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just for clarification, so.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so the question is, I guess, are we gonna have requirements for, like, to try to build our administrative base to maybe have that they would have an instructional piece with the APs or with their principal if they were a dean?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, so we've done some work with our deans, much like what we do with our principals and our APs. Our student support manager, Tom Stewart, meets with deans monthly, and they do really a deep dive. So they treat it like a monthly huddle, and then they do a deep dive on behavior practices, and really they're focused that way. We do recognize the need, because there's an imbalance in the instructional side, but they can't go in and do that. So we are cognizant of that. We do have deans that are part of our NISL program, which is a very principal-centered program. So they're learning a lot in there, those that are a part of that program. So there are opportunities in the district to do more than just be the behavior expert in your building as a dean.
thank you.
So looking at the middle school, it's the same guidelines. There are 2 schools in particular that we just need to take a look at. North is estimated to have 481 students next year. They are a CEP school with very high needs. By the guidelines, they would have a principal and an AP and a dean, but they currently have a principal, 2 assistant principals, and a dean. Based on the needs in that building and the fact that they're CEP, I believe we should leave that the way it is. They need all of that administrative support in that building. When you look at East, they're at 575, but that 575 is before personal transfers. So it could very likely hit that 600 mark, which is the cutoff, and they have a sped classroom. So even though the guidelines say a principal and an AP, they do have an extra dean, and I think we should leave it that way for now and just monitor that enrollment. If it would continue to go down in the future, we may need to look at making a change. But if it's, kind of up and down, we just want to monitor that and be careful not to have a knee-jerk reaction. Did I? Sorry. Oh, I didn't put the slide in. Okay, so middle school level, there really is no additional cost there. It's leaving things the same. Looking at elementary and middle school counselors, this is where I would say it kind of got ugly. So the recommendation by the American School Counselor Association is 250 students to 1 counselor. Really nobody across the nation is able to meet that recommendation. The national average is 376 students per counselor, and our state average in South Dakota is 332 to 1. I tried following those guidelines in my first approach, and we would have to hire 15 counselors in order to meet that. So just to kind of give you some perspective, I went through multiple reiterations to get to where I am. So what I came down to is using a ratio of 1 to 500 for our non-title schools and 1 to 350 for our title schools. That would put us in the range of the state and national average for our title schools. So this is what that would look like. So again, let's just go, I guess we'll just look at the oranges and the reds. So Meadowbrook, 417 students, but again, they have Kim and Custer and they have a SPED program. The guidelines would say 1 counselor, but that counselor at Meadowbrook does have to go over to Kim and Custer at times to work with students and also loses travel time going back and forth. So I think we leave that at the 1.5 that they currently have. Okay, looking over at the title schools, you can see now we get into some reds. Okay, Valley View with 613. The recommendation would be to have 2 counselors and they only have 1. Okay, when we get down below, we'll see that Knollwood has some extra. So my question is whether we could just move from Knollwood to Valley View rather than hiring. Okay, Rapid Valley at 492 and a SPED program. It would be recommended that they have 1.5, and they only have 1. But that is a title school. We could add that via title. Okay. General Beetle has 444 students, but they're CEP, a very high needs school. The recommendation would be 1.5. But because they're CEP, I would say leave them at the 2 that they have, and that's hired via title anyway. Grandview, 422 students and a SPED room. That would put them at 1.5, and they only have 1. We would add that via our title funds. Okay, Knollwood, they only have 326 students, although they are a CEP school and have a SPED program, but still the recommendation by the guidelines is only 1, and they have 1.75. So we could consider moving that 0.75 over to Valley View, meaning that we would only have to hire 1 counselor via title funds that would be shared between Rapid Valley and Grandview, and then the other would just be movement within the district, and then that would not affect our general fund. Now, when you talk about moving from one school to another, though, that's where we'll get feedback from schools that don't want to lose staff. I mean, it's hard to lose what you've had.
I have a question.
Yes.
Just knowing what we know about Knollwood and some of the needs up there, could we keep them where they're at with the title funds and then because Valley View, is Valley View title or no?
They are, yes.
It just seems like
we could consider that. The more we use our funds here, the less we have for preschool down the road. It's just a toss-up things you have to consider.
Ms. Clapham.
Yes, I was just wondering, I know it's numbers, and I just want to say, Dr. Thompson, I know this is really complex, and no matter what you do, someone's not going to be happy. Like, I fully acknowledge that. So you said like split between, I think, like Grandview and Valley View, and maybe it causes more movement, but I just think like geographically, is there any way to like share between Valley View and Rapid Valley, or does that not really work? Like the adding the half, like is there a way to make it geographically easier? Kind of a open-ended, I'm asking you this on the spot question.
Say your question again, please.
Oh, it sounded like you said something about the half being shared between Grandview and Rapid Valley.
Correct.
And then I know there was talk about moving someone from Knollwood to Valley View. it's like, is there a way to like share a partial one between Valley View and Rapid Valley instead of Grandview, like just from a
I mean, it could be
traveling idea?
considered. The reason I did not is because Knollwood had 0.75, so it got us closer to a full person, which is what is actually needed at Valley View. But yes, we could consider all of those things. And Dr. Strasser would do a great job of that, I'm sure, in negotiating with building principals.
And I think too, just, and I'm kind of, we're saying it for the public, and I know Dr. Thompson, and I can't remember if the full board, but just putting out there as we talk about and we look at these things in our counseling needs, and there's been some information brought forward to HR about the fact of how we count experience for teachers who move into counseling. And so I would just say, as a board and administration, like we should keep that in mind. Like we see the high counseling need we have. And so to consider, like when we're looking at what experience levels count for counselors, that plays into this, like if people want to move into counseling and how we can fill those positions.
Mr. Swan.
I'm curious to what the staff reaction was when you presented this. Did they get pitchforks, light torches or anything, or?
I have presented it to the building principals. I have not presented it to staff. Some of the staff have seen it because it is attached to the board agenda. And I believe some of you have received emails from the schools that are potentially on the losing end of a staff member.
Okay.
And I anticipated that. I mean, anytime you're talking about taking a staff member from one school to another, you are going to get negative feedback. It's just looking at what is overall best for the district. And we have heard time and time again that schools like Valley View need additional help. Now, if we had an unlimited budget, we would just hire those extra people. Well, if they're available. But we don't have an unlimited budget, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Ms. Urban.
This is like a little bit of a bird walk, but I think it's a point worth making right now as we think about the limited budget that we have and what we're facing going forward. We hear from staff, they need help, and that would improve their lives at school. We hear that potentially it's pay. And so I think our job is always trying to straddle, like, how can we support the schools without cutting too much and also, give salary increases. And I just think it's worth pointing out because these are really difficult decisions. And I think at the end of the day, we'll probably try and do some of both where we can. But this is a great example of why our limited budget is a challenge.
Yeah, there's only one pot of money, but lots of needs. Okay, so it certainly does not get prettier when we move to the middle school, because they're all right around 600 students. As you can see there, east, south, southwest, and west, all based on their numbers, would need 1.5. And they only have one. So the recommendation would be to either hire 2 counselors, or Dr. Strasser is having conversations with them about whether they could reallocate an FTE from an existing staff member who is leaving via attrition to move into a counselor position. But we know that our middle school counselors are struggling, and we may be losing some because of that. They basically are in crisis mode most of the time. North is the only one that has additional staff. They have 2 counselors, but again, the needs in that building are such that I believe we should keep it there. Okay, moving into specials. PE, music, and I should say library, or what do we call it, IMS? Thought I had this changed. there really is no research available on what staffing ratios should be for specials. It's different in every building across the nation, based on what kind of specials you have, how big your building is, all of those types of things. So I used the same ratios as I did for non-title counselors, that 1 to 500. When you look at the chart, you see that the majority of our non-title schools are within the recommended range. South Canyon, which is our smallest school at 235, would have a recommendation of a half person, and they have a full, this is not my updated presentation, okay. Full person. There is a little bit of caveat to that with music is at 0.6. But the library position is a full-time position. So we could consider moving someone over to Valley View, which according to the guidelines needs another half of a person. And to put that in perspective, you know, our smaller schools like South Canyon, Wilson, and South Park might have, each special might have 12 sections, whereas Valley View has 24 or 25. So it is a huge difference. And that affects other things in the building like planning time, or like Wilson and South Park, I think they might use some of their specials to do some additional things like reading, that type of stuff. So we could consider moving a half a person from South Canyon to Valley View. They are a long ways away on the map. So you would definitely want to think about scheduling by the day, you know, like a Monday, Wednesday thing or Tuesday, Thursday, to avoid a lot of lost time due to travel. And of course, this is one that we have received some input on, so.
Mrs. Rafferty.
You already said this, that some of the teachers use their special time to plan and meet. Also, I am also aware that, with using wing groups, the schools also use their special teachers to help with their wing groups too.
Yeah.
So I guess if we have, I don't know, to take something off their plate for these schools that will be losing that extra person, would we also look at something else? Because if they're expected to do wing groups, I mean, if you're a small school and you don't have enough staff, you can't run a wing group effectively.
And
Yeah.
Valley View could say the same thing.
Yep,
because
exactly.
they have twice, even more than twice
Mhm.
the staff, or the students. sorry.
Right.
Twice the students, yeah. You gotta consider both ends.
Yeah.
The number one question I get in listening sessions is Valley View, you know, at what point are they going to get more assistance? And so this plan tries to address that. The same thing is true for Rapid Valley because they know their expansion is coming and they're worried, you know, what happens when we get to 600 or 700 students? When do we get more assistance? So this tries to provide that guidance for them. And, you know, if we had the staff or the available funds, we could just hire someone to do that. Because there's not that availability, we have to decide, are we just gonna put this off because we don't have the budget? Or are we gonna look at existing solutions within the district?
Ms. Clapham.
It's a quick question and it's kind of so the music Meadowbrook, that's 0.4. Where is the other 0.6? Do you know that?
Yeah, it's
Dr.
on
Thompson or
South
Dr.
Canyon.
Strasser?
It's at South Canyon.
Is it? Because I thought the South Canyon music teacher was also at West.
Oh.
In
Yeah,
fact, I know she is.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Those assignments are all pretty solid and and those are set, so. Yeah,
Yeah, I was just curious, like playing with numbers, like if that 0.4 person, like where's the other 0.6 and could they, so I just was like kind of brainstorming as I was sitting here, so I was curious.
Okay, thank you. I'll put a question mark by that, Jamie. So why would we consider having a methodology or guidelines like that? One is to outline a minimum level of staff that the district's general budget should provide for schools. We currently don't have that, and our larger elementary schools and our middle schools are seeing that, particularly with counselors. It provides assurance to our growing schools regarding future staffing. You know, even at the architectural thing at Rapid Valley, that's the question I got, is when are we going to get more help? And it provides guidance for staffing of new schools if we were to build some down the road. Some future considerations is I have been asked, well, should there be a distinction between not only non-title and title, but title and CEP schools? And I do see there is a difference there. I've kind of used it as a bump in this proposal. Making more levels of distinction gets pretty tricky, but we could try looking at it down the road. I did not look at literacy specialists and interventionists at this point because there's been some questions about what the best way is to use them in the district. And I wanted to wait to get our new director into that Title I position to have some conversations about that philosophy before making any staffing changes. I've also been asked about secretarial help for some of those larger buildings. I did not look at that yet. And then obviously I did say the senior high is something that we just have not tackled at this point. So there is not necessarily an ask from the board, as staffing has just kind of been determined at central office with Dr. Strasser and the superintendent, but wanted to put this out there for awareness of how we would be making those decisions. And overall, I would say that was the most frequent feedback I got from building principals is thank you for providing the rationale
And doing the research.
and the research. Yep.
All right. Thank you. Another good report. Any questions? Mr. Swan.
Dr. Thompson, this is gonna be, is this gonna end up in a situation where we're gonna need policy for this, or are we just gonna continue on off recommendations, or? I know it's ever evolving, you know, and I
Yeah.
think it's kind of a.
I think
something
it
to
would
pin
be
down.
dangerous to put it into policy because you could not always guarantee that you could fund it at that level. And so I would say it has to be such as this as a guideline that depending upon budget and other factors, you make a decision that's best.
Hey,
Ms. Clapham.
I wondered, and it's a tiny bit in the weeds, but I know some feedback I've heard, and Dr. Thompson, I was just wondering if you had heard it, that our IMS teachers struggle a little bit with the managing the technology, that once we became one-to-one, and I've just heard that with as the technology ages, that they feel like they're getting really pulled away from their IMS jobs because they have so many computer repairs and that kind of thing. And I didn't know if you heard that feedback, not that I said we necessarily have the budgetary means or way to do that. I just kind of wondered if you heard any of that feedback as well when talking with staff and talking about staffing. I know especially for our middle schools that don't have a library assistant.
I did hear that particularly from one individual who emailed us all. I mean, but you have one librarian in a school of, 300 and one librarian in a school of 600, and they all have that same issue. So if you have 300 more students, you probably need more assistant than if you don't. The other piece to that is we did have an issue with our HP Chromebooks, which phase out this year. And so there are tons of issues with those particular Chromebooks, which will be replaced next school year. So we're hoping to see less technology issues next school year. It won't eliminate them all, but should be better.
Well, that is really good information to have, and I am excited that those will be replaced. So thanks for that little update.
Okay, well, it looks like we've come to the end of our instructions. All of the reports were excellent. There's exciting things that are happening in our district. We are now on Miss Urban.
For other, I just wanted to shout out to the Boy Scouts that are here in our meeting tonight. It's always nice to see students, and this is a big ask to sit through a couple hours of board stuff. It's probably a little bit dry, but thanks for being here.
And actually, I was going to mention that one of the parents or guardians, can you speak to that, why you're here and what's, you can just come, oh, is there?
We don't have a mic turned on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can just stay at the podium, we'll bring a mic to you, or you. Mic's all over here. Okay, yeah, you can go to the podium so we can see you on the.
Oh,
On the screen.
gotcha. Come on, boys. So yeah, we are working on a merit badge for communication. And one of our requirements is to attend a public meeting of some sort.
Okay.
Take notes, so hence all the paper shuffling.
Yeah.
And then report back to our counselors. So, and we chose, well, this one obviously.
Yeah.
So, I'll let the boys say your name and.
I'm Alex Davies. Oh, I'm Southwest. I remember you from robotics. That one more. I'm his twin brother. I'm John. I'm John Davies. I go to Southwest and I'm a sixth grader too.
I'm Jack Vogel and I also go to Southwest and I'm in sixth grade.
And the other one that stepped out was Liam Owens, and he's also in their class, Southwest, so.
All right, well, thank you for coming. I hope you, I was about to say, I hope you enjoyed it. I better choose it. I hope you were educated and learned something. Thank you for coming. And just for, just to state that this is not a normal practice of us engaging the audience doing our study session, but these are students in our district, so I just thought it was important to see why they were here, so thank you. All right. All right. Any other? Seeing none, Shirley,
Wait,
oh.
I was raising my hand.
Oh.
Yes, just because of timing, I wanted to say a shout out and look to the Stevens Raiders girls basketball team. They are the only West River team to make it to the state tournament. And if anybody's around on Thursday at 12:45, they will be playing over at the Monument. So hopefully they represent our district. I said in all of West River well. So wanted to wish them the best of luck.
Right.
Who made it? I didn't.
What's that?
Repeat that, Jamie. I didn't quite.
So the Stevens Raiders women's basketball team made the state playoff. They're the only West River team to make it, and the tournament is here. So they play on Thursday at 12:45. So if anybody can make it out to support them, that'd be awesome. I said hopefully they'll represent the district and West River well.
Okay. All right, that was better.
Oh, that's my fault.
All right, Sheila, I don't need to give this. You're gonna record the adjournment, so I don't need this. You just take that one. Okay, I'll entertain, if there's no others, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, that was motioned by Urban, seconded by Mr. Swan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Well,
It's fine.
okay.
Already heard me.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Jamie's already said aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. All right, We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. What is that, 7:15? Oh, that wasn't bad at all. That wasn't bad. Go home and have dinner. Make some more pound cakes.
Pound cake.
Yeah, I'm doing a cultural day at Rapid City area schools.
Oh.
And so we'll make some pound cakes. Oh, did it, oh, look at that.
Did you hear?
Slippery, it's slippery out. The roads are slippery.
Like a penguin.